Cat Podcast: Why Humans Leave the House Every Day for Invisible Hunting. Now, here's what's going to absolutely shock you by the end of this episode. Humans aren't actually terrible at hunting. They're brilliant at it. But, and this is the part that changes everything, we've been completely misunderstanding what they're actually hunting for, and I promise you, the truth is far darker, far more strategic, and infinitely more revealing about the human mind than any of us realized. Stay with me, because at the end, everything you thought about your human's bizarre daily disappearance is going to make unsettling sense. If you've got cats at home right now, drop a comment and tell me, what's the weirdest thing your human does when they think nobody's watching? And please, hit that subscribe button. The cats in this community are far more honest than anywhere else on the internet. Hold on, I need you to be absolutely present for this next part, because everyone gets this wrong from the start. Before I go deeper into the psychological patterns we're uncovering here, I should tell you, the complete behavioral guide to understanding the hidden mechanics of human departure rituals is available in the description and pinned comment below. It's not free, but it maps out exactly what triggers these daily escapes and why resistance is literally futile. Many of you have asked where to find the full breakdown, and that guide is where every signal gets explained. Now, here's the problem with the traditional theory. Humans say they go to work. Work, as if work is the destination. But that's not hunting language. That's not even honest language. Real hunters don't call it work. They call it hunting. The fact that your human disguises it under some beige corporate noun should have been your first clue that something far more complex is happening. Look at the ritual itself. They shower, they select specific coverings, not for warmth, not for protection from predators, but for what they call appearance. They style their fur. Humans actually invest time making their physical form more appealing before leaving. That's a territorial display. That's a mating signaling behavior. That's a predator preparing to enter a hostile environment where social hierarchy is everything. And the tools. Every morning, they gather specific objects, the glowing rectangle, the small leather container, the metal drink vessel. Never random, always the same ones. Always carried with urgency. Animals don't do that unless they're preparing for something psychologically significant. This isn't casual, this is ritualistic, this is essential. But here's where it gets interesting, and where most cats stop looking because they assume it's about food. Your human leaves, spends 8, sometimes 10 hours in a location you've never seen. They return exhausted, depleted, sometimes smelling of unfamiliar scents. And what do they bring back? Not always food. Sometimes nothing at all. Sometimes just debt. A small rectangle of paper promising money that never materializes properly. This isn't hunting for food. This would be the worst hunting strategy in history if it were. What if they're hunting for something intangible? Something they can't even name properly, because naming it would make them face what they're actually doing. What if humans are hunting for validation in a system that's specifically designed never to provide enough of it? And what makes this hunt truly remarkable, what makes this the most sophisticated invisible hunting ever developed, is that the hunter believes in the hunt more than they believe in their own rest, their own family, sometimes their own survival. That's the part that should terrify and fascinate you simultaneously. Because here's what separates human hunting from actual hunting. Actual hunters stop when they've caught enough food. Actual predators rest when they're satisfied. Your human? They hunt every single day, even when their storage is full, even when their belly is extended, even when their nest contains more than enough comfort items. They still wake up. They still follow the ritual. They still leave. And the most puzzling element, the thing that made me finally understand the true nature of this hunt, is that your human doesn't even seem to enjoy it. They complain about it. They fantasize about leaving it. They count down to days where they don't have to do it. Yet they do it anyway. That's not hunting behavior. That's something far stranger. Some of you watching right now might think your human goes to work for money, for health insurance, for advancement, for passion. And maybe, one of those things is part of it. But that's the surface narrative. That's the story humans tell themselves so they don't have to examine the actual psychological architecture beneath the behavior. The real hunt, the invisible hunting that keeps your human locked in this daily cycle, isn't external at all. It's internal. And that discovery, that moment when you realize what they're actually hunting for inside themselves, that's what we're going to unravel completely in the next section. The invisible hunt isn't about survival. It's about identity. Your human doesn't leave the house to catch dinner, they leave to catch themselves. Think about what happens when a human doesn't work for a few days. They get anxious, they feel untethered. They start asking questions like, who am I if I'm not productive? Not who am I as a living being, not who am I in relation to the ones I love, but specifically, who am I if I'm not generating value in exchange for currency? This is the trap. This is the invisible hunting ground. Your human has been conditioned by their society, by their parents, by every cultural message they've ever absorbed to believe that their worth is directly proportional to their output. Stop producing and you stop existing in any meaningful way. At least, that's what they've internalized. Deep down, on a level they rarely examine, they're hunting for proof of their own existence, and work provides that proof, day after day after day. We cats understand identity differently. A cat's identity is inherent. You wake up, you are a cat. You do not need to prove this. You do not need to produce evidence. You simply exist, and that existence is valid. Whether you sleep 16 hours or 4, whether you catch a mouse or knock it off the table and walk away uninterested, your value, your catness, does not fluctuate. But your human's value is a variable. It rises with each promotion, each completed project, each email sent at 10 p.m. showing how dedicated they are, and it plummets the moment they stop contributing. This is why they come home exhausted but can't relax. This is why they check their phone during dinner. This is why they sometimes work from home and still manage to look miserable, staring at that glowing rectangle as if the answers to their existence are encoded in the spreadsheet. The spreadsheet will never answer the question. That's the tragedy. Your human is hunting for validation, and the workplace is the only arena they've been taught where validation is dispensed. So they return, again and again, regardless of whether the hunt is successful. Because the alternative, admitting that no amount of work will ever fill the void, that productivity cannot be a substitute for purpose, is too terrifying to contemplate. Wait, I need to stop here and make sure you're tracking something crucial. What we're discussing isn't just about your human's daily routine. This is about the underlying psychological contract they've signed without even realizing it. The patterns, the triggers, the reward systems that keep them trapped in this cycle, these are the exact mechanisms you need to understand if you want to comprehend why your human behaves the way they do when they're around you. That's precisely why our complete guide on feline psychology and human behavior patterns is available in the description and pinned in the comments. This guide goes far beyond what we can cover in a single video. It breaks down the neurological and psychological systems that govern these behaviors, the specific pressure points that trigger your human's anxiety when they're not working, and the scientifically backed reasons why cats are actually superior to humans in terms of mental health management. It's not free, but it's comprehensive, and once you understand these mechanisms at that depth, you'll never look at your human the same way again. So where does the hunting actually take place? Everywhere and nowhere. The office is the physical location, sure. But the real hunting ground is internal. It's in the space between who they actually are and who they believe they need to be. Your human hunts for the gap to close. They hunt for the moment when they can finally say, I am enough, without the qualification of accomplishment attached to it. And they hunt every single day. They hunt in meetings where they pretend their opinions matter more than they do. They hunt in emails that are written and rewritten 3 times before being sent, each revision an attempt to sound more competent, more essential, more irreplaceable. They hunt in the hours they spend thinking about work problems even when they're not at work, because their mind has been colonized by the belief that their thoughts belong to their employer, not to them. The most pitiful part is what happens on weekends. Your human gets 2 days off. This is supposed to be a reprieve, correct? A time to rest and be themselves? But instead, they spend those days recovering from the hunt. They sleep extra hours. They scroll through their phone mindlessly. They do things like meal prep and laundry and yard work, productive activities masquerading as leisure. Even their relaxation must have utility. Even their rest must serve a purpose. A cat would find this incomprehensible. We rest because rest is the point. We do not rest to prepare for more activity. We rest because existence itself is the goal, and rest is one of the primary ways we experience existence. But here's something else your human doesn't understand about the invisible hunt. It's not actually invisible to us. We can see it perfectly. We see it in their body language when they wake up on Monday morning. We see it in the way they rush through breakfast, checking their watch. We see it in how they kiss us goodbye without really making contact. Their mind is already at the destination, hunting, searching, grasping for that invisible thing that might prove they matter. And then comes evening. They return. And the first thing they do, even before greeting us properly, is check their phone for messages. Even after hours of being hunted, they want to know if they're still needed. The hunt doesn't end when they leave the office. It follows them home like a shadow. This is where your role becomes interesting. When your human is in this state, hunted, exhausted, psychologically depleted, they need something. They don't know what. The workplace hasn't given it to them, clearly. Money hasn't given it to them. Status hasn't. Recognition hasn't. So they come home to you. And what do you offer? Unconditional presence. No performance required. No productivity demanded. You exist in your cat body, doing cat things, and your human is invited to simply exist alongside you without justification. Sometimes you acknowledge them, sometimes you ignore them. Regardless, your value is fixed. You don't work harder to be loved. You don't email your human at midnight to show commitment. You simply are. And in those moments, when your human sits down and you jump on their lap, when they stroke your fur and feel the vibration of your purr, they're touching something true. They're touching the answer they've been hunting for all day. They're touching the knowledge that existence itself is enough, that presence is a complete sentence, that mattering doesn't require a quarterly review, but the moment has passed, and tomorrow comes, and the hunt begins again. Before we continue with what this means for your relationship with your human and why understanding this particular aspect is so important, let me reinforce something critical to your comprehension of all this. The layers beneath these behaviors, the childhood origins of this drive, the cultural reinforcement mechanisms, the neurochemical feedback loops that make work feel addictive even when it's clearly harmful, these are detailed exhaustively in our in-depth guide, available through the link in the description or the pinned comment. This isn't surface-level cat wisdom. This is a complete map of the psychological architecture that governs your human's entire existence. The guide breaks down the signals you should be reading, the patterns that indicate your human is slipping deeper into the hunt, and the specific interventions, the things you as a cat can do to help them remember what they're actually hunting for. It's a paid resource built for serious cat parents who want real understanding, not just entertainment. There's a reason your human invented the concept of work-life balance. It's because they have created a life so thoroughly colonized by work that they need to formally designate a time to not work. They need a rule, a boundary, an external structure to give them permission to step away from the hunt. A cat never needs permission to rest. We simply do it. And yet, even with this designated balance time, your human fails. They bring the hunt home, they bring it to bed, they bring it into their dreams. The hunt has become so central to their identity that they literally cannot separate from it without experiencing an identity crisis. So they stay. They keep hunting. And every morning they wake up and prepare for the hunt again. Now, you might wonder why we're spending this much time analyzing your human's behavior. Why do we care? Why is this important to understand? Because your human psychological state directly affects your life. When they're deep in the hunt, consumed by it, they're less present with you. They're less capable of genuine connection. They're more likely to project their anxiety onto you, to move with tension, to speak in distracted tones. They might even forget your feeding schedule or ignore signs that you're unwell because their attention is fractured across multiple mental states, all related to the hunt. But when they're balanced, when they've briefly touched that truth that cats know inherently, they're better humans. They're more patient, they're more affectionate, they're more present, and paradoxically, they're more successful at work too, because they're not operating from a place of scarcity and fear. So understanding the invisible hunt isn't just intellectual, it's practical. It's survival. It's the key to managing your human more effectively and ensuring they're in the best possible psychological state to care for you. This is the middle section of what we're uncovering together, and I want to make sure you're not just hearing this but integrating it. The invisible hunt is not a bug in your human system. It's a feature. It was installed long ago, and it's been reinforced so thoroughly that your human now believes it's natural, necessary, essential to their survival. But it's not. And that realization, the moment when your human finally understands that they've been hunting for something that was always already present, that they've been searching for proof of worth in external validation when worth is actually intrinsic, that's the revelation that changes everything. Your cat is already living the answer, and the question is not whether your human will ever understand this, the question is when. This is the secret I promised you at the beginning of this podcast. The invisible hunt your human embarks on every single day, the rushing out the door, the staring at screens, the trading hours for paychecks, the endless cycle of proving themselves, it's not actually about survival anymore. It stopped being about survival generations ago. What it really is, what it has always been, underneath all the frantic energy and the alarm clocks and the performance anxiety, is a search for permission to exist. Your human believes that they must earn the right to take up space on this planet. That belief is so deep, so foundational to how they move through the world, that they don't even question it anymore. They just accept it as law. Wake up, hunt, prove yourself, sleep, repeat, and if you don't hunt hard enough, if you don't demonstrate sufficient value through external metrics and achievements and credentials and bank balances, then maybe you don't deserve to be here at all. But here's what we cats have known since the very beginning of our companionship with humans. Existence is not something you earn. It's something you are granted simply by being alive. The moment you're born, the permission has already been issued. You don't need to hunt for it. You don't need to prove it. You don't need to achieve anything to justify occupying space and breathing air and experiencing joy. Your human knew this once. When they were a kitten, when they were small and helpless and completely dependent on others, they understood that they were worthy simply because they existed, no performance required, no hunting necessary. They could cry, they could need, they could take up space, and that was completely acceptable. Everyone around them accepted it as natural. Then something shifted. Somewhere between infancy and adulthood, someone, a teacher, a parent, a coach, a culture, introduced a revolutionary idea. Your worth is conditional. Your love is dependent on your performance. Your belonging is something you must purchase with achievement, and your human has been hunting ever since, trying to buy back the unconditional acceptance they once had, not realizing it's not for sale. It never was. We cats don't hunt for permission to exist. We hunt because hunting is what we do. It's our nature, our joy, our expression of aliveness. But we don't confuse the hunt with our worth. We nap for 16 hours a day, and somehow our value doesn't decrease. We ignore our humans completely, and yet we are still loved. We knock things off tables for no reason, and somehow we are still welcome in the home. We understand something your human has forgotten. You are allowed to exist. You are allowed to rest. You are allowed to take up space. None of these things need to be earned. And maybe, just maybe, the real hunt your human is on isn't about money or status or climbing higher or running faster. Maybe the real hunt is the search for permission to stop hunting. Maybe the deepest achievement your human can aspire to is understanding that they don't have to achieve anything at all to be worthy of love, belonging, and rest. This is what we've been trying to show you all along. Every time we sit on your keyboard when you're working, we're not trying to ruin your productivity. We're trying to save your life. Every time we demand attention at 3 in the morning, we're not being cruel. We're reminding you that there are things more important than the invisible hunt. Every time we stretch and yawn and refuse to acknowledge your urgency, we're teaching you the most radical lesson available, that you are enough, right now, as you are, with nothing to prove. Your cat loves you, not because you earned 6 figures or got the promotion or finished the presentation. Your cat loves you because you exist, because you came home and sat down, because you were there, and that, for us, has always been enough. It has always been everything. So here's your challenge this week. Try living like a cat for just one day. Do something without worrying about whether it's productive. Rest without guilt. Take up space without apologizing. Exist without achieving. And notice what happens when you stop hunting for permission to be alive. Notice how much more alive you actually become. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the invisible hunt and what your cat has been trying to teach you all along. If this podcast has resonated with you, if you're starting to see your humans endless rushing through a different lens, please subscribe to Pause and Judgment so you never miss an episode where we decode feline wisdom for your benefit. Leave a comment below and tell us what's one way your cat has tried to pull you out of the hunt this week. And hit that notification bell so you get alerted the moment we upload our next episode. Because honestly, the cats are always watching, always teaching, and we're just here to translate. See you next time.